The most terrifying revenge doesn't scream. It doesn't smash dishes or kick down doors. It simply waits, patiently, for years. And then, with a single phone call, it shatters everything you thought was safe. Linda Mitchell never raised her voice. Not even the day her son fell off his bike and gashed his knee to the bone. She just knelt beside him, pulled a clean handkerchief from her purse, and pressed it gently to the wound. "It'll be all right, sweetheart," she whispered. But in her eyes, there was no panic, only something cold, precise, detached. Like a surgeon before an operation. No one knew that, deep inside Linda, a war had already begun. A silent war. No weapons. No shouting. Just a quiet, relentless fight for justice no one else could see. And it all started 15 years before that phone call, the one that changed everything. Linda and her younger sister Carol grew up in a quiet Ohio suburb. Neat lawns, Sunday barbecues, Christmas lights on every porch. Their father worked for an insurance firm. Their mother did part-time work at the local library. Life was normal. Except that Carol had always been the favorite, bright, bold, loud, always getting exactly what she wanted. Linda was the quiet one. The good girl. The boring brain, as her classmates called her. When their mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, Carol was the first to say, "I can't be her caregiver. I've got my career, my kids." Linda, already a widow living on a modest pension, simply nodded. "I've got this," she said. Month after month, she changed diapers, gave injections, read aloud, even when her mother no longer recognized her voice. Carol showed up every 3 or 4 weeks, always with candy, a bright smile, and the same empty promise, "I'll bring Mom home as soon as we have room." That room never appeared. At the funeral, Carol gave a beautiful, moving eulogy full of love, full of tears. Guests wept. Linda stood beside her, holding a black umbrella, silently counting how many lies her sister told in those 3 minutes. "She always said how proud she was of me," Carol declared. Linda knew their mother had never said that, not once. But Linda said nothing. As always. Years passed. Linda lived alone in their childhood home, a tidy brick house with a porch and maple trees in the yard. Carol lived in a newer neighborhood, in a house twice the size, with a pool and a gourmet kitchen. Her husband, Paul, a successful real estate agent, toasted family at every holiday dinner. Linda attended those dinners. She smiled, accepted hugs, said little. And then she'd leave, trailing only silence behind her. Everything might have stayed that way, predictable, quiet, like an old clock ticking, had it not been for the day Carol showed up at Linda's door with a request. "We're in trouble with the IRS," she said, avoiding eye contact. Paul fudged a few numbers on our tax return. "Nothing huge, but could you lend us some money? Just for a couple of months. We'll pay you back. I swear." Linda looked at her sister. There was no anger in her eyes. No bitterness. Just exhaustion. She nodded. "How much?" $125,000. It was everything Linda had, her pension savings, her late husband's life insurance, a small inheritance from an aunt. Without hesitation, she signed the check. She'd always been reliable. Carol hugged her tightly. "You saved us, Linda. Seriously. We'll never forget this." But they did. 2 months later, Linda saw a photo on social media, a pool, champagne flutes, Carol in a brand new Gucci dress. "Dream vacation," the caption read. Linda didn't call, didn't confront. She just opened a notebook and wrote the date, June 23, 2019, and underlined it twice. She began to collect. Quietly. Methodically. First, the checks. She kept a copy of the transfer, a handwritten IOU, though not notarized. Then old letters, her mother's complaints that Carol missed her birthday. Photos, her mother alone in a hospital bed, while Carol lounged on a beach the same day. Next, Paul's documents. She didn't hack his email or rifle through his mail. She simply remembered the time he'd left his work folder in the living room while grabbing a beer. Linda accidentally spilled her water glass and asked him to help clean up. In those few seconds alone, She snapped photos of a few pages, one of them a draft tax return with clear signs of fraud. She placed it all in an envelope labeled, "Do not open until the time is right," and locked it in a bank safety deposit box. The key she wore around her neck. 2 more years passed. Paul and Carol thrived. Their kids got into elite colleges. They expanded their home, bought a yacht. Meanwhile, Linda volunteered at a senior care center. She read books in the evenings. And she waited. She knew revenge isn't a single act. It's a process. And the best revenge is to let your enemy feel safe for far too long. Then, take everything away. Opportunity came on its own. One day, Carol called, her voice shaking. "Linda, we're desperate. Paul's business, it's gone. Creditors are forcing us to sell everything. Even the house." "What about the yacht?" Linda asked gently. "We sold it. Sold everything. All we have left is the car. What do you want from me?" "Nothing. Just support. Do you know anyone who might help?" Linda paused. Then said, "Come see me tomorrow. We'll talk." Carol arrived in tears. Linda made tea, sat her on the couch, and said, "I might be able to help. But there are conditions." "Anything. You and Paul must formally acknowledge the debt in writing before a notary. And you'll sign a lien against all your property until you've paid back every cent. If I help, you'll work to repay it. No exceptions." Desperate, Carol agreed. The next day, they signed the agreement. Paul, normally so confident, looked like a broken man. Linda smiled. "Family is sacred," she said. "I always believed in you." She gave them back the money. All $125,000. Carol sobbed with relief. Paul hugged Linda and whispered, "You're an angel." Linda nodded. And 3 days later, she mailed a package to the IRS. Copies of documents, bank records, witness statements. She'd found Paul's former bookkeeper, willing to talk for a small fee. And the original falsified tax return. Within a month, federal agents arrived at Carol and Paul's door. Their business was frozen. Bank accounts seized. Their home confiscated. They faced up to 5 years in prison. Carol, for the first time in her life, called Linda in hysterics. "Was it you? How could you? We're family." Linda answered calmly. "Yes. And family means you care, not use. You got exactly what you deserved. And I don't regret a single second." She hung up. And for the first time in decades, she let herself cry, not from pain, but from freedom. 6 months later, Paul took a plea deal, admitted guilt, paid massive fines, and was sentenced to community service. Carol took a job as a school cleaner. Their children, ashamed, cut off all contact. And Linda? She sold the family home, bought a small cottage by the lake, planted a garden in spring, read books in the evenings, sipped honeyed tea, and sometimes hosted her old friend Alice, a retired librarian from the next town. "Aren't you afraid they'll come back?" Alice asked one afternoon. "No," Linda said. "Because real revenge means you're no longer afraid of them at all. The most powerful revenge leaves no scars on your soul. It doesn't turn you into a monster. It simply restores balance. And yes, it doesn't arrive with a scream, but with a cup of tea and the quiet smile of a woman who finally won."